Hey everybody, welcome to this final installment of Civil Liberties and Civil Rights. For all of you people who are not from Bakersfield, California, who are out there in the universe, this is a big day. It is actually raining in Bakersfield. I don't know if you can see outside the window there. That is rain. We have a big drought in California. So this is big news, huge news, that we actually have some rain this morning. So everybody's in a good mood here in Bakersfield, California in early December. Wanted to talk about what I consider to be the largest revolution in the history of constitutional jurisprudence. And that is an issue called selective incorporation. Now, when you look at the Due Process Clause, there are two of them in the Constitution, the Fifth Amendment and the 14th Amendment. But there is a huge difference between the two. Remember, the Due Process Clause in the Fifth Amendment was written by the very first Congress, and it was a way of assuaging the fears of the anti-federalists that Madison encountered during the Virginia ratification debate. So the Fifth Amendment says that nobody will be deprived of life, liberty, or property without due process of law. But of course, the Bill of Rights were there to restrain the national government, because that was the fear in 1791, is that you would have this all-powerful national government that would, restrain the power of the states and trample individual liberties of citizens. And so that's there in the Fifth Amendment. And yet, the 14th Amendment also has a due process clause. And the due process clause of the 14th Amendment is very different. It uses the word state. No state shall deprive a citizen of life, liberty, or property without due process of law. Now, why the word state? Well, in the mid-1860s, we're not worried about the national government anymore. If you are a black citizen, the 13th Amendment ended slavery, the 14th Amendment established citizenship for anybody who was born in the United States in its actual territory. If you are a new black citizen of this country who is a former slave, you are not worried about the national government. The national government issued the Emancipation Proclamation. The national government waged a civil war. The national government is your friend. What you are worried about, of course, is the state governments, which is why the 14th Amendment Due Process Clause uses the word state. Now, that word state has led to a complete overhaul in the way that we look at the National Bill of Rights. Starting in 1925 in a court case called Gitlow versus New York, the Supreme Court said that state constitutions and state legislatures and state governors, in essence, state governments now had to be restrained by the Federal Bill of Rights as well. And their justification for that was the Due Process Clause of the 14th Amendment. And what they began to do on a selective basis was to take different rights from the Bill of Rights: freedom of speech, freedom of assembly, the Exclusionary Rule, a right to privacy, right to an attorney, you name them. And what they started to do on a case-by-case basis was to say, okay, this right now needs to be followed by the state governments. Remember, in 1833, before you had a 14th Amendment, in a court case called Barron versus Baltimore, a very old John Marshall said states don't have to listen to the Bill of Rights. The Bill of Rights are just there to restrain the national government. Remember, what is the First Amendment? The First Amendment begins with the words, Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion. It didn't say anything about the states, so the states could establish all day. States could have cruel and unusual punishment. States could do whatever they wanted to at the state level because the Federal Bill of Rights did not apply to them until the Supreme Court started this practice called selective incorporation. And of course, started in 1925. The Warren Court was very famous for incorporating lots of these due process, 4th, 5th, 6th, 8th Amendment cases into the states. And of course, we just had one in 2010 that finally incorporated the Second Amendment into state constitutions. So again, that is selective incorporation. That's the constitutional justification. Make sure you know it. Good luck.